Hi everyone, Alexandra Judd, Jupiter returns. I missed you. It's been a little while, hasn't it, since I made a video? Um, and I just wanted to do that. Even I'm in slightly different surroundings, as you may see. I'm in my camper van in deepest Dorset in England, and but fortunately, my trusty board is here, so I can still do my thing if my thing is of use to the collective right now, which is a little bit more about what I'm going to be talking about tonight. The reason I thought I would do a video now is because it's going to be, as many of you will already know, it's going to be quite a big year astrologically. There's big shifts coming up. And I strongly feel that this weekend, the next few days, are quite an important energetic connection to what's going to be unfolding. And I think it's a really powerful opportunity for us to empower ourselves through understanding the astrology and be able to connect with that and feel like we have some semblance of influence, not control over the situation, but some influence in it. Like we are empowered to know a little bit about what's going on and how we can meet that. That's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity I just want to make sure that lots and lots of people are aware of. So that's basically why I'm doing this now. It's a really important time. So grab a cuppa or a glass of Pisces blood wine, and yeah, get comfy. I've got the boards. I may do this live at some point if that's something that people feel might be of interest, and then there will be the opportunity for people to sort of ask questions or make comments or contributions of any kind as I go along. But I didn't want this to go on too much tonight, so I thought I'd record it instead. But if you do have any questions or comments or contributions to this dialogue essentially that I'm opening up, then please do feel free to just whack it on the comments in YouTube or on my Facebook page. That's probably the best place to find me, Jupiter Returns, or at Astrology Empowerment on Insta, although I'm not particularly active on there. These social media platforms are wonderful, and this is as well, essentially, but there's just too much for me to condense down into succinct words that fit, you know, the prescribed mold that you have to sort of fit yourself into. So I'm just recording, and it's not particularly structured. It's a little bit freeform, as it is with me. I'm a Pisces. We go with the flow. And so yeah, forgive any ramblings, but yeah, just sit in the bath, do what you do. First thing I wanted to really cover, it's a really important point. It's not super specific to everything else that's going to be going on, but I just want to bring this up because I'm getting a lot of feedback at the moment from clients and friends and whatnot that suggests that everyone is of the mind that the Mars retrograde process is all finished now. Mars is going direct, and I just want to bring our attention back to that. That isn't just something that happened back then and it's all finished now. Retrogrades have three distinct parts of the process. The middle part is, yes, that's when planet is going retrograde, but the pre-retrograde shadow and the post-retrograde shadow, they bookend it. They make sense of the whole of the process, of the whole of the work that you've done in the retrograde. So yes, when that planet turns retrograde, that's the end of the when it stations direct, sorry, that is when the retrograde is over and it's all finished, happy days, what have you. But there's still a third of the work left to do in the post-retrograde shadow. So Mars retrograde issues are still very much present in our lives. They haven't resolved. Mars is down here in Gemini, but the shadow zone, he hasn't moved quite through that yet. So he's moving direct, going forwards, but still covering the ground that he's gone back over. And that's going to depend for you individually on what in your chart is still to be activated by Mars going along, particularly any placements that you have obviously in Gemini itself, but in Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. So these are the signs, any of the placements you've got there in the late 20s, in the late 20 degrees, you know, that's still to be resolved. It's still to be completed. So please just remind yourself. I do these things for clients and whatnot that you might not know about, but oh, we probably can't see it. It might be a bit bright there. Anyway, so this is my personalized map of the Mars retrograde, and I did this for clients, and you can see here March the 15th that's the last aspect Mars is going to make to a planet in my chart, which happens to be my Venus in Pisces, that actually settles and resolves what it was all for. So, you know, it's nowhere near finished yet. So just wanted to say that, because I think everyone's focus right now is on the Saturn stuff and the Pluto stuff, and Mars isn't quite finished. So just check back in with what's going on with that. And that is relevant because Mars is the ruler of the South Node, the lunar South Node, because the South Node is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars traditionally, and in the modern day Pluto. So Mars is doing some of the work on behalf of the South Nodes. They're deeply connected to each other, you know, and it's the nodes of the moon that bring the eclipses and these powerful shifts in what we kind of wrap within the term of fate, you know, fate unfolding. And that's another point I wanted to make, is that fate isn't this set in stone thing. It's going to be a big thing that we need to kind of keep in mind this year, is there is no predetermined order of how things are going to play out. People want to know what's going to happen in the future. We're creating the future now in this moment, in how we are meeting with our consciousness and our energy. How we are meeting what is showing up now is determining the future. We actually have way more control over how things are going to unfold, or influence on it, than we think. So just keep, you know, if you fall into that habit of thinking, oh, I wonder what the future has in store for me, or I'd love to know what's going to happen when, you know, Pluto does this or Saturn does that or whatever. Yes, get a personal reading and have a look how it's going to likely show up in terms of the range of potential options that it offers to you in your chart. You know, but on the bigger sense, and particularly in times like these, you know, it really is a case of nothing is determined, everything is fluid, and you know, that future is becoming, in terms of yeah, how we're showing up now. We do have so much input into it, especially with this new moon as well, which is don't want to bore you, keep saying that. I will talk actually in detail about the new moon. Anyway, so let's bring it to right now. So it's Friday the 17th, the evening of Friday the 17th of February 2023. As I talk to you, it's, what is it, like 9:45 at night. It's we've currently got the moon here in Capricorn. Okay, so she's coming up very, very close now to Pluto, and Pluto, as you may have heard, is now at the very last degree of Capricorn. This is the anaretic degree. It's an extremely powerful point in any of the signs. You know, the 0 degrees and the 29th degree, but particularly the 29th degree, seem to be, they just seem to pack a bit more punch than the other degrees in the signs. And particularly, I think, with the cardinal signs of Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. And why is that? And that's because they create the world axis, or this the point where we have the solstices and equinoxes throughout the years. They're very, very powerful points. They usher in something new. They create something brand new. So they're very, very powerful points. So we've got the moon there right now. she's really, really, really closing up this cycle. It's a new moon on Monday, so a couple of days away. So it's really, really dark moon times. And what she's going to do is she's going to meet up with Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn tonight, this evening. Okay, so that's really, really going to be stimulating us, or it's going to be pulling up to the surface, essentially. The moon does that. If you think of the effect that she has on the tides and how much a proportion of our body is water, you know, and water is representative of our emotions and our soul. So she pulls it up to the surface, and she's amplifying the vibration here of Pluto right down to the 11th hour, essentially, of Capricorn, the old way, you know, the old way of doing things, the old traditional, the old patriarchy, the old establishment and the corporate world and the suit wearers and all of that good stuff. You know, that's kind of like the old world that Pluto has been asking for us to transform since Pluto ingressed into Capricorn back in 2008, when we had the global financial crisis. So we've had since then of Pluto going through Capricorn, really, really asking for us to pull things apart, see how it's not working well. It's not, you know, what does Capricorn, what does that establishment energy, what's it supposed to do, that structure of our collective life, what's that supposed to do? Is the current version of that fit for purpose? I think we all have the same view on that one, maybe. But Pluto wants to say, okay, well, let's tear it up, rip it up, start again, put it back together in a different way that works better. So Pluto has been trying to break apart the old ways of doing things for some time. And it's now the 11th hour, 29th degree, and Pluto's a bit like, oh, I really got to do this now. This is not sure we've really completed the mission here. And that's actually going to continue on throughout the whole year to a certain extent. We're going to be dipping in and out. So the moon's going to pull up to the surface, and Pluto has a purgative effect as well. Anyway, Pluto has also that similar energy of, or a deeper energy really than the moon, but of dredging things up almost from the soul, you know, from our deepest, the deepest aspects of ourself that kind of go beyond this lifetime. And that this is really important because, you know, this is the whole of this year is going to be this transition between Capricorn and Aquarius. And that's exactly what the moon is doing tonight as she approaches the full moon in Pisces, the new moon in Pisces, is she's going over that bridge. So pay attention to your dreams tonight. I think there's some real deep stuff that's going to come up. And I think that's happening in general anyway, but yeah, you could have some really interesting and powerful dreams tonight. So pay attention to them. If you watch this like tonight, you probably won't, it's quite late. So the moon then ingresses into Aquarius around 5:30 in the morning UK time, Saturday morning. That is Saturn's day. And this is really interesting because obviously this will be where Pluto's going to ingress on March the 23rd. She's then throughout the 18th, Saturday, tomorrow, what she's going to do is she's going to, where's my aspects gone? What have I got? I've got a couple of squares. She's going to square her own lunar nodes, the lunar nodes, the north node down here in the north node here in Taurus, okay, and the south node in Scorpio. And the moon will be, this is going to take place around 7 degrees of Aquarius. So the nodes are around about 7 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, and the moon over there at 7 degrees of Aquarius. And that's, again, this is like this real pull to paying attention to, or feeling into this place that we are at the moment, between where we're coming from or what needs to be left behind now. With the South Node in Scorpio, it's composting the stuff that is just not helping you get where you need to go. The North Node over there in Taurus, for the time being, you know, the future, the destiny, the goal. And so it's saying to us that we're somewhere between these two spaces, and this is mirrored in all of the astrology right now. We feel like we're in this no man's land of the old world and the new world. And I'm this is literally, for me, I'm in my camper van. You know, I've sold up my old home and my old way of life, and I'm not yet bought the new one. And here I am in my van in transit, and it's this kind of weird space that's going to be quite common, or quite, you know, it's going to be a lot of it out there for people this year. So that's going to be quite a moment tomorrow. I think it's a really, really important, it'll be really interesting to see the events of Saturday, to see what happens. I know there's like you know, some protests and things taking place, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And then the moon's going to meet up with Mercury, and Mercury's kind of involved in squaring the node. So yeah, it's really, that's going to be quite interesting to just really pick up on how you're feeling. How does it make you feel? Do you feel like you're in this space between past and future? And just then give that some thought and some consideration, and hopefully what I'll talk about tonight might plant a seed or help in that process of just, you know, exploring it in your mind. Because when we're coming into a new moon, this is what we're supposed to be doing. A new moon is when the moon is actually her most powerful. You might think, and a lot of people do think, that the moon is most powerful when she's full. But what she's doing then is she's a reflector. She reflects the sun's light to us. And at full moon, it just means that she's taking on all of the sun's light. Well, the sun gets his time. He gets his time during the day. and at night time, it's the moon time. You know, during the day, we do those masculine, expressive, solar things of making stuff happen out there in the world. The nighttime and the dark is the time for us to pay attention to the inner world. This is what we do with the moon. How am I feeling? What are my needs? What do I need to do? Am I, you know, what am I here for? All of this stuff is really, really important. How do I feel about things? And getting back in touch with your body, you know, just getting out of your head and just being again with the inner world. And so particularly at the new moon, she's shedding the sun's light. You know, it's less and less of that outer world influence, and more of the influence of the dark. So as she's shedding that light, she's actually growing in strength, as far as I'm concerned. The moon is most powerful when it's just the moon. That doesn't mean it has less effect. It just means it has more effect where it's supposed to have an effect, which is, you know, you plant a seed in the dark, right? You don't plant a seed, you don't just lie a seed on the top of the soil to pick up the sunshine. It needs some time in the dark to do the bursting into life thing. And that's what we need to do each month. We need to go into the dark, into our inner space, so that creative process of something new bursting into life can happen, and have a little minute to itself before it then breaks out into the world. So this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be going into our inner worlds and having to think about it all. So watch your dreams tonight. See how you feel tomorrow. I mean, how you feel all the time, but particularly tomorrow when the moon squares the nodes. We've also got on Saturday the 18th, the sun will actually ingress into Pisces. So that begins Pisces season, although Venus has been there for some time already, doing her thing, having a nice having a nice old love-in with Neptune yesterday. Yeah, so that's happening on Saturday as well, and that's activating the degree that Saturn will move onto when Saturn ingresses Pisces on March the 23rd. No, 7th, March the 7th. Saturn ingress Pisces, March 7th, yeah, which is not far away. So what else have we got? Yeah, on the point of the moon squaring the nodes here and this space between the old and the new, this is something that's going to be a feature of the whole year when Pluto moves into Aquarius, and this process was already started. So you may have had some experiences in your life recently, particularly since the Leo, the last Leo moon that we had, the Leo full moon, around that time, of old stuff coming up to the surface, like really old, super old, or even beyond this lifetime, and even into past lives, just really random ties to the past that are just coming up right now. Pluto is the ruler of the South Node in Scorpio, obviously. You know, so this is kind of like that. Really, let's see everything. Let's remember everything about how we've done things previously, because this is kind of like the process this year of sorting through, like, did that work? Was that helpful? Does that support us in our way forwards? Or is it something that's actually getting in the way of that and it needs to go? And that's going to be a really powerful part of this year, because Pluto is going to move into Aquarius. Well, it's actually going to move between the two, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But then the nodes are going to shift into Libra over here, South Node, and the North Node into Aries. And that's going to once more bring them into exact square with Pluto up there. So we're going to have that kind of playing out. They're going to be kind of like floating around within orb of each of that aspect for the whole of the year. And just this year, actually, Pluto won't square the nodes again until 2025. So it's just 2023 that we get to work with this, essentially. So let me see, what was I going to say about Pluto? Yeah, so Pluto is essentially going to repeat this pattern. So let's go into the Pluto thing. What's happening? So we've got Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn right now. We've got the ingress into Aquarius on the 23rd, so a couple of days after the vernal equinox. We have Pluto moving into Aquarius. Where we're actually at with Pluto right now, the pre-retrograde shadow of Pluto began on the 8th of January. So we're already in pre-retrograde shadow. So the stuff that is coming up now with Pluto, the stuff that's really saying this is deep and it's powerful, it's got a lot of weight in your life. Do you want to keep it or throw it? Because essentially that's why it's coming up. You know, that's why it's happening. That stuff that's coming up now is the stuff we'll have to go back over again with the retrograde. All right, that's why it's coming up. It needs you to pay attention to it. So anything that's been showing up like that since the 8th of January, that's the stuff we'll be going back over when Pluto retrogrades. So Pluto is going to ingress, so we're in pre-retrograde shadow since 8th of January, then ingress into Aquarius on the 23rd of March, and then we'll station retrograde on the 1st of May, and that's 0 degrees 22. So it's like really Pluto just takes the very first taster of Aquarius. Like, what am I going to be doing in Aquarius? What is Pluto going to be doing in Aquarius? Well, Aquarius represents the future, the completely radically fresh new way of doing things. it's the genius, the inventor, the spark of inspiration, you know, inventions. It's science fiction, it's cutting edge technology, it's progress. And so it comes after kind of like this. Capricorn is the old, the established, the traditional. We do things like this because it's the way they've always been done, the tried and tested. And the tried and tested, unfortunately, after a while can just get a bit old, essentially, it gets a bit stale. So we need some new, exciting freshness to come in, and that's what Aquarius offers. So you can see we've got this repeating theme of the nodes of the future and the past, with this movement across the cusp between Capricorn and the old, and Aquarius and the new. So the pre-retrograde shadow, 8th of January, stations retrograde on the 1st of May at 0 degrees of Aquarius, goes back into Capricorn. All right. So this work isn't quite finished yet at this point that I'm talking to you now. Let's move the moon out of the way. Stays in Capricorn then until the 10th of October. So all of the summer essentially, and that's really, really important. I'll explain why in a sec. So goes all the way back to 27 degrees 53 of Capricorn, and will then station direct again, move back into Aquarius, and leaves shadow on the 1st of February next year. And that's when it's kind of like, right, I get it, I get what the mission is. How are we moving between the old and the new world? It's kind of like not quite sure how this works. A bit like me, I'm just going to hang out in my camper van. I'm going to just navigate, take it one step at a time. You know, how does the new look? How is the old going? You know, all that kind of stuff. It's essentially what Pluto's trying to get us to do. So this square that Pluto is going to make to the nodes of the moon, that's going to be a feature of the whole year, but that goes exact on August the 3rd. Okay, so that's going to be quite a powerful day as well, I think. And interestingly enough, that's during the Venus retrograde this year. So Venus is going to go retrograde in Leo this year, and I'm hopefully going to set up a similar thing as to what I did with the last Mars retrograde. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Venus retrograde in Leo. Why is that important and relevant? Well, because Venus is the ruler of the North Node for the time being, whilst the node is in Taurus, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. But when they shift, which they will have done by this point, when they shift, actually then Venus becomes the ruler of the South Node, because Venus also rules Libra. So the process that Venus is going through, when Venus goes, you know, through this retrograde process, it's very much involved with the bigger picture of what the nodes are doing as well. And I think this is kind of a piece of what's going to pull this all together. Hopefully going to do at some point when I finish rambling. Yeah, just remember it's a Venus retrograde in Leo, and that's really important. So yeah, those nodes will shift on July the 12th. So that's when we start to get a slightly new flavor of what fate is going to show up as, in a sense, or things are just going to shift energetically. So we've got the North Node is currently ruled by Venus and then will be ruled by Mars when it's in Aries, and the South Node that is currently ruled by Mars will be ruled by Venus when it moves from Scorpio to Libra. So it's this really interesting flip of the energies of masculine and feminine with Venus and Mars playing out here. And we've got Jupiter also in Aries alongside the North Node. It's really going to be making us enthusiastic about our personal individual part in how we move forward. And this is why I think the Venus retrograde in Leo, again, what is Leo? Leo is my creative expression of myself that I offer up to the world as my little individual ray of sunshine. It's the sun that rules Leo, and we all have the sunshine in us in some way, shape, or form that's unique to us. And that's what makes us special. There's something special about all of us. That's what Leo tells us it's all about. It's like, find your light and make it shine. And then when you do that, and let's consider that Leo is the opposite to Aquarius. So the work that we're doing there in Venus with Venus retrograde is having an impact over here. When we know how to shine our own light and express what's in our heart, at the center of the self, the solar plexus, you know, when we know how to shine that light, it has this effect on the collective, the tribe, the collective of humanity, which is what Aquarius represents. And that's how it's supposed to be. And we have fun with that in Leo. You know, we have to have fun to find the joy and the radiance and the creativity in order to know how to make it shine. Like, if we didn't know how the sun felt when we received it, then we couldn't really know how to emit the same, to match that same frequency and put it out there. So there's that kind of that dynamic of the enthusiasm to be an active part in creating the future that's going to involve, you know, a review when Venus goes retrograde of how I'm currently showing up on the stage of life and of the collective in my community. Right, so what else was I going to say? So essentially, start to pull this all together a bit and then talk a little bit about the new moon. So this time, this is what I'd love for you to keep in mind this weekend. This time, this year, is about bridging the gap. Pluto's going to be doing this. The moon's doing this weekend, giving us a kind of like a taster of what Pluto's going to be doing. Bridging the gap between the old and the new to create the radical change we long for. That's kind of like the whole vibe of this year, all right? Bridging the gap between the old and the new to create the radical change we long for. How do we do that? I hear you say. Well, I think a big part of this comes down to Saturn and how we meet the Saturn transit through Pisces. And that's why the new moon in Pisces that's coming up this weekend is a really important part in all of this. Why is that? Because Saturn rules the sign of Aquarius and it rules the sign of Capricorn. It's the dispositor of Pluto. Pluto is the one that's going to be, you know, moving between Capricorn old, Aquarius new, and squaring the nodes of old and new. So this kind of has a big deal to do with Saturn, all right, because that is the ruler of these two parts of the sky. And so how do we deal with Saturn going into Pisces then? And that's been talked about quite a lot by astrologers. I'm sure you've watched other things. My take on it essentially is that we are being asked to get real about the meaning of life. Essentially, Saturn really does want us to just like grow up and get real about things. Just own it, you know. Like, you are going to die. That's the thing with Saturn, especially Saturn in Pisces. It's the last sign. It's where we go to meet our maker. It's endings and all of that kind of stuff. Saturn it just really wants us to be mature and old and responsible and do our hard work and do our duty, essentially. And the whole point of that is because Saturn knows that things take time. Saturn is Chronos, the Lord of Time. He plays the long game. And unfortunately, human beings, by the capitalist sort of Capricornian type of arrangement of life, organization of life, has made us very susceptible to made us addicted to short-term gratification, instant results. I want results now, kind of everything is no one has any patience really. Like it's the Amazon Prime pretty much sums up modern day life, doesn't it? Essentially, I want my quick hit of something that's going to give me some pleasure. You know, can you tell me everything that's going to happen in the astrology and in your 30-word limit or whatever, you know, so I can look at 20 million different tweets or whatever that day. Saturn knows that things that last, you know, it's called the establishment because it's established, and it's done that in Saturnian ways. And Chronos, the Lord of Time, knows that things take a long time. Saturn is the reputation that we earn when we get to a certain point in life as being the wise elder. We've had some experience, we've gone through some challenges, we've had to meet those challenges, and that gives us some status. All right, that's what Saturn's really all about. And ultimately, Saturn wants to help us all to achieve our goals in life, the big long-term plan of why we're here, right? And a lot of us don't even know. And one of the things that Saturn's going to be doing as it moves through Pisces is say, okay, there is an end point in this particular incarnation in this life. And we kind of have to get real about how we want that to look. What does it mean to us as individuals? Because, you know, as Ram Dass so beautifully said, we're all just walking each other home. So Ram Dass or was it Wayne Dyer? Like, both beautiful men. Like, we're all just walking each other home. And that's something, again, that I think that we should keep in mind this year, because Pisces is home. It's the return to source. Home essentially is where we experience unconditional love and acceptance and nourishment and contentment and a feeling of safety. You know, we shut the door, we come home, we can let go, we can be ourselves because we feel safe and we feel, you know, okay about everything. What gives people that feeling, though, of home is really, really different. So whilst we're all walking each other home, home isn't the same place for everyone. You know, we'll walk a little bit of the way with this person, and then we might walk a little bit of the way with that person, and someone else might join us and whatnot. We're accompanying each other, you know, on that journey. That's all we're doing, really. And I think it's what's really sad is that a lot of people don't really know what that journey is. Like, they've never really thought about the quote meaning of life, which sounds like a super heavy thing, but Pisces is what that's all about. It's like, how am I connected to God, to source, to home? You know, how is spirit moving through me in this incarnation? And that's very different for everybody else, because we're all here doing a different piece of work, completely unique and individual. And this ties back into this idea of, you know, how do I shine my light out into the world? Because the collective, the tribe that we're a part of humanity, it doesn't need an homogenized cookie cutter version of 8 billion people that all look the same, think the same, feel the same. That's what robots were created for. And that's a whole Pluto and Aquarius thing, of course. But if there's something sacred, which is Pisces, there's something sacred about the human being that artificial intelligence and robots and all of that is never going to ever be able to match. Like, we are a miracle. You are a miracle. when you were born as a tiny baby, it was just like this absolute miracle, and nothing has changed about that. You still have that encapsulated within you. And we need to connect back to that. With Saturn going through Pisces, it might seem like times are very, very hard, and there's a lot of sadness and depression and darkness and loss. That can definitely be one of the ways that it could show up. And that's the stress test that Saturn gives us. How strong is your connection to source? Saturn pushes down, it's a heavy weight, pushes down on things to see where are the cracks. Is this strong enough? Is this going to last the test of time? Well, it's going to expose where the cracks are. And the reason is so that we can then show up, do our work, fix those cracks, and then we've got a solid platform to move forward from. So it's not just pushing on us and making life hard to be a dick. It's trying to help us get to what our long-term goals are. And if we're not clear about what those long-term goals are, then he's just kind of like given remit to try and help us work it out. And sometimes that's in hard lessons, that's sometimes in loss. But I won't guarantee anything, because I would never have that level of I don't think it's healthy to have absolutes. But because I'm Pisces. Oh, what was I going to say? Zero idea. Yeah, so I've lost the thread. It might come back. Apologies. Yeah, so Saturn in Pisces is I'm really knocked that I've lost the thread of that now. No, it's really gone. Okay, never mind. All right. Saturn's going to stress test us, going to show up those cracks. It's going to test our connection to source. And there's a reason for that. It's because we need a connection to source. There is a spiritual void in modern day life. There is a hole that needs to be filled with something. And the problem with Pisces is it's boundaryless. It will blend itself to take the form of whatever is there. So, you know, if there's a hole there, something will just move into that hole and take up that space where there is the spiritual void. Likely something that's going to give us a sense of relief from that empty space. And that's so often drugs and alcohol and spiritual bypassing and all of these things that are very typical with Pisces, just checking out of reality, essentially, giving a little bit too much credit to some of our fantasies, and the way that we have rose tinted glasses sometimes about things. That's definitely one of the things that can jump into that space, and that space is created when there is a spiritual void created by the fact that we don't live spiritual lives, we don't acknowledge the sacredness. And the sacredness that I think we desperately need to remind ourselves of right now is the sacredness of ourselves. Really, really do. With Jupiter, you know, going into Aries, the sign of the South, the North Node coming in from the other side, the South, like the individual, the man, the just you, me. That's what Aries is about, me. That's where the attention needs to be right now. It's going to be very, very easy to see all the wrong in the world right now. It's super, super easy. And that's going to be, we potentially maybe awash with being able to see where things aren't working, how we'd like them to work. And we can't just open ourselves up to too much of that suffering. The shadow side of Pisces is it will be a martyr. You know, it will be Jesus nail itself to a cross. It's like, but no good's going to come of that. You weren't given this spark, this divine spark of humanity, this miracle of life, to just you know, decide that you're just going to not respect the sacredness of that by living to your full potential, to be a channel of some of the divine. Essentially, when we strengthen our connection to the divine, we are offering up ourselves, particularly with Pisces. I can't tell you this strongly enough. Particularly with Pisces, it's like that old song, "Make me a channel of your peace." Like we offer ourselves up as a channel for the divine to work through with Pisces. If you're doing that, then you're not offering yourself up as a channel to all of the badness and awful stuff that's going on in the world. And I'm not saying bypass that, pretend like it's not happening, stick your head in the sand. Definitely don't do that, but just give an extra bit of hard work. That's what Saturn, just a little bit extra hard work, even when it's not much fun and you're not going to get instant results and instant gratification and instant pleasure. Just know that this is the long game. This is how to play the long game, and that's what we need to be doing at this time. So yes, strengthening yourself as a vessel for the divine to work through by remembering the sacredness of you and the divine spark of your humanity that can never, ever, ever be replaced by any flipping robot or any algorithm or any program. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. Men may think they can play God, and they'll definitely have a good go at it, and they've got loads and loads of money. They'll really, really have a lot of a go at it, but it's not possible. They aren't God. Just because they want to play God doesn't make them God. And we all have to just remember that the little piece of God that we have within us, and encourage that. We've got 2.5 years of Saturn going through Pisces, and then it moves into Aries. It moves across the Aries point, that incredibly powerful point that says the actions of the individual man have a global impact, right? That's essentially what the Aries point does. The Aries point is when we have the spring equinox, when the sun moves into the sign of Aries, starts the whole new natural wheel of the year. It's the ultimate beginning point. Excuse me. And it's extremely powerful. And humans of every civilization throughout time have known the power of that point. So when a planet moves on to that point, it's also very powerful. And when it's a powerful planet like Saturn is one of the social planets, Saturn and Jupiter together work together to create societal influence. And Saturn's going to be meeting up with Neptune at that point. So that's why this work that we're going to be doing with Saturn in Pisces, ruled by Neptune, this next couple of years, that's super important. So just remember how you can, Saturn's an architect, right? He wants to work out the plan of how things are all going to work, and then go, okay, let's get the pipe work in, let's get the infrastructure in place. So that's what you need to be doing. Get the infrastructure in place. What's the meaning of life to me? What did I come here for? What's the specialness about me that I was meant to give to the collective, to contribute to the collective, the ray of sunshine? I came here to add to the light. You know, what is that? These are big questions, and they should find their way into your consciousness at some point in life, I think. And it happens at the right time. It happens at the right time for everyone. You know, it's there'll be a lot of, one thing to watch out for is kind of false idols, that kind of false guru stuff. This, with the enthusiasm of Jupiter in Aries, is something that we need to be quite clear on. Jupiter's got a thing about needing to know the truth and wanting to influence, like have an influence on people and share their philosophy. But unfortunately, the shadow side of that is just righteousness and opinion. With the kind of the rush aspect of Aries and the North Node here, there can be an impulsivity, and it can come from quite an infantile place of, I just need to be right, or I just need someone to think I say something worth hearing, or to agree with my opinion in some way. And an opinion, it's just like, I don't know, it's just I just don't, yeah, it is just that, it's not the truth. And a lot of people mistake the two. Your opinion isn't necessarily the philosophy of the of all of life. So that there might be some quite enthusiastic displays of, I'm right about this, and Aries does things typically sometimes with a bit of force, with a bit of a punch behind it. So it's like, you know, believe what I say or else. And that's no way to influence the world to, you know, to your views. Well, it's one way of doing it. It wouldn't be my recommended one. So I'm rambling, sorry, apologies. So that's the Saturn in Pisces bit, is like getting real about what it is that you came here to do, how the divine is going to flow through you individually in terms of the contribution that you make to the collective pool. Pisces is where we all meet up. We all drink from the same pool of water, and we're all putting stuff back into that pool of consciousness, you know. And so yes, that pool of consciousness, there's a lot of horrible stuff floating around in there for sure. And we can just spend all our time shouting at people saying, stop putting that stuff in there. Or we can just dilute that so it has less impact by contributing something better. And I don't mean better in a kind of like a superiority way, better in terms of what specifically you came here to do. And that's only going to come through introspection and connection to source. That's what Pisces teaches, you know, connect to source. So really get into your spiritual practice, really get into how you can dedicate yourself a little bit more to being able to connect to source, really strengthen that up, so that when we get to the sort of the Aries time, when Saturn moves into Aries, and there's lots more changes taking place, and Pluto's firmly embedded in Aquarius, like shaping things up there, you know, the contribution that we make to that is then the highest possible. It's going to have the most impact because it's going to be aligned with what the universe wants for us. And if at any point you want to jump on to some form of communication and have some help from me with that, it's a really good time around now to get your transit report done for the coming period of time. We can go into the specifics of how this is looking for you. You know, have a solar return reading done if you've got a birthday coming up in Pisces, that kind of thing. And I can help you, guide you towards what it is that, you know, how you shine your light and where might be the best place for you to focus that light, you know, growing that light, because we're not in a structure right now that celebrates diversity. And I don't mean diversity as in the, I need to be different, so I'm just going to do whatever I can to get some attention through my differentness. I mean genuinely what is completely unique about you, not what's just contrary to the mainstream. This is one of the big problems that you get with Aquarius, is that Aquarius can just think anything that isn't the old way is the new way. And that's not necessarily the truth, or it's not necessarily a good way of thinking about it. You know, to be different, to be unique, just don't even think about anything outside of you. It's like, get to know you. Stop focusing on how everything else in the world is wrong and it's all going to shit and everything's breaking apart and isn't life hard and it's all so unfair, and let's fight these people because that's how we've got where we are with all the fighting. You know, that's how they've got where they are, by fighting and by force and by all of these things, and by focusing on the outside, the enemy, you know, those people over there. This is all about coming back to you, coming back to the heart of you. Venus retrograde in Leo. Leo is you, your heart, your essence. Jupiter and the North Node in Aries, you, the individual. Saturn in Pisces, you as completely kind of like stripped away from everything else. 12th house is the house of retreat, of isolation, of the places that we go to be in solitude and to just be with self and be with God. All of these things point to how do we change society? How do we navigate, bridge this gap between the old way and the new way? Is by doing things in a radically new way. That's what Aquarius wants. The radically new way isn't fighting, because fighting is what we've done. That's what's got us into this shit. It's not being superior than someone else. The radically new way is like, just wind your neck in, just focus on you, stay in your lane, and just get really, really, really damn good at what it is that you really came here to be and to do. Work that out between yourself and God, and then just do the hell out of that, basically. I think that's what the message is. So how do you then start that process this weekend with the Pisces New Moon? Because this actually, even though Saturn doesn't ingress Pisces for a few more weeks, I reckon it starts now. Pretty much it starts this weekend. And this just, I've got goosebumps, because this is really, really powerful, and it's really exciting to me, because I want to make things better for people if I can in some way. And I think this is a way that you could. So see, I'm just doing it for myself, really. So we've got a new moon at 7 a.m. This is UK time. Sorry if you're not in the UK, but I'm sure you kind of know how to convert it to where you are. 7 a.m. Monday the 20th of February, and the new moon is taking place at 1 degree and 22 of Pisces. So we've got the moon and the sun coupled up there right at the beginning of Pisces. Saturn is alongside, it's within orb, so it's technically conjunct. It's like 3 degrees away. Saturn's 28 degrees of Aquarius. So yeah, there's a concentration of energy between those guys there, for sure. But there is a sign difference. You know, Saturn is still in Aquarius, and the moon and the sun are in Pisces. So it's an out of sign conjunction. That to me doesn't offer up quite the quite a strong influence as if Saturn was in Pisces alongside. I do think there is a difference, because Saturn's doing things in an Aquarian way, and the moon and the sun are doing things in a Piscean way. So there's an inherent difference to the way that they're expressing their energies. So yes, it's a new moon conjunct Saturn, but Saturn is still in Aquarius, and what Saturn's doing is Saturn is laying the foundations for the new, radical new humanity, tribe, collective that Pluto is going to come in and do. So he's putting that infrastructure. He's still working on the Aquarius stuff. The sun and moon have a bit of influence because they're so close by, but they're doing things in this Piscean way, you see, which is all about, you know, me as a miracle, and how do I show my respect, which is a Saturnian thing. How do I show my respect to that incredible miracle that is my life? By living it in the best way possible. So we've got, this is where it gets exciting. Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, and that's because Venus represents, it's very creative energy, it's very feminine energy, it's very it's about love, it's about connection. Venus connects, essentially. the metal copper, we use it for pipe work, we use it for wires, we use it for things that connect two things, bring two things together. Venus rules Libra. That's what Libra is all about, right? Let's bring two people together, two individuals, two Aries. Let's bring them together into harmony, into a relationship, a connection. That's what Pisces does. That's what Venus does. And when she's in Pisces, she's said to be exalted because the love in Pisces is divine love. It's unconditional love and beauty and connection and bliss. So to have her influence there, and at this point in time, remember, you know, the nodes, the south node is back there in Scorpio, the north node is in Taurus. So she is influencing the future, right? She is the dispositor of the north node in Taurus at this point in time. Earth sign, Taurus, water sign, Pisces, work well together. You get clay, you can mold it into something good stuff. So, and she's at the 29th degree. And remember what I was saying earlier about the 29th degree is it's this place where there's just a little bit more, packs a bit more of a punch, because it's like, it's the last degree, like I've got to do the thing, like this is my last chance, the 11th hour. Now she is going to connect by sextile aspect to Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn, which Pluto will retrograde back over again later in the year. This is bridging the gap between the old and the new. Chuffed with myself now. I've managed to get my brain to work. The sextile of Venus, which is unconditional love in Pisces, and Pluto, which is this radical, like potent, intense, breaking things apart to put them back together in a new way. It's transformation, it's death and rebirth. It's as deep as it gets. That at the very final degree of the structure of society and our long-term goals, the goals that we're trying to achieve, the mountain we're trying to climb, the status that we want to achieve. It's all of those things. So to bring those two together, and there's not much else really going on. You know, there's really not much else going on in the rest of the chart. It's really, really focused and concentrated on these two. So, and again, we've got the connection between water and earth there. So we've got Venus, unconditional love. How can I offer my heart space to be the home of the divine, and let that be the transformation? Okay, let that be the transformation. So when you're setting your intentions for the new moon, know that essentially, with it being the new moon in Pisces conjunct Saturn, that's really, really kind of like setting the scene for the Saturn ingress, and then the 2.5 years that Saturn is going to be going through Pisces. And so really we're setting our intention for the whole of the Saturn transit as well as this particular new moon, and just keep those ideas in mind. Well, if that's right for you, you know, it may be, it may not be. So I hope I've pulled it all together and sort of made some sense out of it. There is a lot of shadows out there, and there will continue to be shadows, and there'll be horrible old yucky stuff that comes up that's been pushed down for a long time in all sorts of ways, in personal ways and in collective ways. But we got to just get real about things and go, do you know what, it's okay. I'm a divine being, I'm a soul. I'm going to not be perpetually love and light. That's not really why I came here. I just need pleasure all the time. We're addicted to pleasure. We didn't come here just to have pleasure. We came here to grow, and growth requires a little bit of struggle. But when we're engaged in the process and we're more aware of what's the struggle for me and why, what's the piece that I'm supposed to be playing in this, whole, whatever this crazy show is that we're all living on. That's where it is. And you're not going to do that by focusing on what's going on out there at all. You've got to bring it back to self and your connection to source, and then that's going to really help you to make the most of the next few years. And that's really what you can do to change the world. Yeah, we can't do it all. We can only do our little piece, but we can do that really, really, really well. And I think that's probably what we need to do. And we need to support each other to do the same. That's the other thing that I really wanted to mention with Pisces and Aquarius. You know, this is how we merge with other people, and we are a social species. We need each other. And so we need to switch the narrative from being in competition with each other, which is the Mars way of doing things. South Node in a Mars ruled sign right now is saying, like, we've done all that. We don't need to compete with each other. We need to cooperate with each other. And we do that by encouraging each other to do what's right for them, if that is a part of the bigger picture of the divine reason why you're here. And if you don't know that, then that's where you start. Like, ask the question now. Spend this year working out the answer to that question, because a lot of people don't, and that's okay. That's fine. There's things are happening. Even our soul is being shaped even when we're not conscious of it. There's all sorts of narratives out there at the moment that you've got to be awakened and you've got to be woke, and everyone else is sheeple and all this, and it's just like, get over yourself. Everyone's exactly where they're supposed to be, and that's fine. And you're not going to change the world by convincing everyone else to be like you and to do what you do and to think like you think and all of that stuff. Just leave everyone to get to their point when they're ready. And just because they may not be aware of it, or you may not be aware of it, of what you're where you're supposed to be going and what you're supposed to be doing and all of this stuff, then the influences that are coming in are still having an effect on you. You don't like, we only use 5% of our brain. There's 95% of stuff that's happening that we don't even know. And there's all these people going around making out they're the most conscious and woke and awakened and aware person that ever walked the earth. It's crazy. It's like, it can't actually happen because there's so much we don't know what we don't know, and all we do know about what we don't know is that there's so much of it. So get over ourselves, stay in your own lane, but make sure that lane is taking you to a place that is divine. Just remember who you are. Remember when you were born, and what an overwhelming sense of amazing, miraculous, beautiful, incredible, what a precious thing that is, that no keyboard and wires in the world is ever gonna possibly replace. All right, I'll stop going on. I hope it was useful in some way, and I wish you absolute love and luck, and please just do use this new moon, set some strong intentions around that stuff, and I reckon it'll do good. All right, lots of love, bye for now, and I'll be back possibly, I don't know.